Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel and this week's video. So just like the title says, I am going to be revisiting my now 5-year-old Ahsoka headpiece, specifically giving you all more insight on how I made it, answering a lot of questions that you guys have sent me throughout the years, definitely some more popular ones, and just give you another up-close look at it and show you the stuff that I didn't show you before, because I think when I first made it, I was very hesitant on showing a lot of things because I didn't really know what I was doing. So the first thing I want to do is give you all a close-up look of the headpiece, sans the crown. In the video, it is a 100% time-lapse with my GoPro, and it's showing its age. 2015 feels so long ago. But anyways, this is what it looks like up close. You can see that there is a lot of seam work within it. I didn't show that in the original video because, like I said, it was just a work through and then it was done. I realized I should have done this probably way sooner, but I'm sorry, and here it is now. So you can see that there is a lot of seams within the spandex itself, and more or less just an up-close look of my giant pillowcase. And also here is an inside look of it as well, which isn't a whole lot, but enough to where you can just see the quilting batting, how it is kind of the hat, cap, and all of my makeup that's on the side, and kind of how it sits on my head. It does honestly sit like a hat. A lot of questions I have are how to get it to stay on. I mean, it doesn't fall off. It sits on my head like a hat. And I designed it on this foam styrofoam head, and a lot of it is just using that head measurement versus my own, which I think looking back on it now, I would have padded this thing out and probably made it more of my own head size. It's fine, it expands, it does what it needs, but overall this is the look of the headpiece up close. Okay, so now let's go back and look at a lot of the questions you guys have sent me over the years, especially the most popular ones, and also things I have learned from in the past 5 years of doing Ahsoka. And I will say I wore this costume out. Like, if I'm going to make another Ahsoka cosplay, I'm going to make a whole new one, and this guy, it's going to be version 1 and then there'll be a version 2. But things that I have learned over the years of wearing her is that one of the things is that the paint is cracking. I did not say this in the video that I should have said it before, but when you are at the acrylic painting stage, mix in a little bit of the latex in with the acrylic or whatever material you are using to coat the outside of it, because that will extend, that will make your paint more elastic. You could also use leather paints. Leather paints are made to have that elasticity with things and don't crack. You can see at the bottom here, especially these points are more high action areas. You can see there it is starting to crack. The paint is starting to come off, and now it's just the latex view of the underside. That's happening there, and I think it's happening in my back, the back point leg, yeah, as well. Definitely one of the things I wish I would have said. Another thing that I wish I would have said in the video that I'm surprised that I didn't, and I just now recently updated the description on, which, y'all, sorry, is how much material I used. I didn't put that in the video. So, honestly, the amount of material that's used for this is about 2 yards of 1/2 inch green upholstery foam, about 1 yard or less of 1 inch. I mostly just used that for the top piece here in the little circle that sits on top of my head that you can see in the video, and probably about 2 yards of white spandex lycra fabric. Yeah, so that's something I forgot like an idiot in the video. Another one that I get very often in the comment section is, hey, I'm allergic to latex. I can't use latex against my skin. What is another alternative to use? I have told people to look into some silicone methods. Silicone, I know Smooth On has several flexible silicone-based brush-on materials that you can use for this that also will go over the fabric and the foam, and you're able to paint on. So if you can't use latex, you might want to look into silicone because it is a little more flexible and does work. It's a little more pricey. Now, over the years, I have learned a lot of different sealing materials and stuff like that. So Plasti Dip is another thing that you could probably use. I haven't tried it. I don't know. Try it out first before you do it on your whole headpiece. As a sealer, but the one reason I like the latex so much is that it does look like kind of a skin texture. It has this kind of a grit to it, and it does show brush marks, which I think is cool. One of the cool things about this piece, how it is kind of texturized. Okay, probably the most question I get asked for this headpiece is how I made the pattern template for it. And I just want to go ahead and apologize because I don't have it out there for you to buy. It is something that I just drafted by looking at shapes and sewing them together. However, I did, and I have been telling people to, if you have difficulty figuring out the patterns and shapes, looking at my three-dimensional headpiece, seeing the different shapes I have, and then making it smaller, like for like a Barbie doll, and drawing it out with paper and using tape to kind of flush through your pattern templates ideas that you have, is how I've been telling people to do it. And it does really work. And I will say, I made this really cute little Ahsoka headpiece, Laiku, in 20 minutes. And here is where I'll insert a little video showing you how I made it, and is a good place to start, and as a close-up look of the actual patterns themselves and at least the shapes. I mean, this turned out okay. You know, it's small, it's made out of paper. Paper doesn't bend well versus foam, and you know, but honestly, this is how you want to sketch out your ideas before taking them out to the big guy. And when you're ready and you have the look that you want, take apart your pieces and then scale them up to the foam and then go for it. So here's a little video on how I made this little guy to help you with your pattern shaping, template making, Ahsoka DIY creativity making. That makes no sense. Here it is.
So just a couple quick definitions here on what I am doing. I'm using a little Barbie doll for the head measurement, and like I said in the video, I am making it small. So honestly, I just took the measurement of her face and just started sketching, like you see here, the shape that I want for Ahsoka's headpiece. This little visual walkthrough that you're gonna see is pretty much just gonna be this time lapse, because there's not much I can really explain besides this is an experimentation stage. It is drawing stuff out and seeing if they work using paper and tape. I realize the tape and the paper aren't as bendable as the foam and when you sew it, so you know, use a little bit of liberty when you're doing it, that it will turn out better when you use more materials that can bend a little bit better. But this is how I did it. This is how I think everyone should really try to work this two-dimensional look into a three-dimensional look. It's all about shapes and all about trial and error. So you'll see me create these shapes and times them by 2 for both the front and back sides, and then just use little expanders to make them three-dimensional. So if you have any questions about this little bit you're seeing here, please comment them below. I can definitely answer as much as I can, but this is how I worked out my ideas, and I think this is how most people should work out their ideas. It's a good design stage. Like I said, I don't have a pattern template available for purchase for this. Maybe in the future I will, I'm not too sure, but for now, this is what I got. So enjoy watching this, and I hope it really makes sense for you guys.
Okay, so now I think I've answered, at least shown you, and I've answered the more pressing questions that a lot of people have with this headpiece on making it themselves. So let's go into my social media questions that I asked you guys earlier in today, the day that I'm filming, what you guys have about this headpiece making process. So a lot of the people, I'm getting a lot of questions on, is there anything I would change now after wearing it for 5 years? And absolutely, pretty much I said before, I would change. Definitely adding the latex to the paint, not making it crack. I would have toyed with the shape a little bit more. I would have liked to have made these a little more stand outish, because they do lay pretty firmly against my shoulders and chest, and it's kind of hard to move. So I do feel like my neck is really far back sometimes when I'm Ahsoka, so I have to lean forward sometimes. So I would have changed the shape there a little bit, but ultimately it still works just fine. But I think that's probably the two biggest things that I would have done now differently. A lot of people really think that there's no seams in this thing. There's so many. Like you all saw at the beginning of the video with my little B-roll of the headpiece, there's seams all over the place. And it's just the fact that, you know, with a picture from far away, it really doesn't show a whole lot of detailed up close pictures until you get up really close to it and see it. But I have one giant big one down the back and a ton of them at the top, which honestly no one sees anyway because it's on the top of your head unless you're near someone who's like 7 feet tall. Or, you know, you're at a Star Wars convention and you're running into like all the Chewbacca's, and if they're deciding to judging your headpiece from that far away, they aren't too cool of people to hang out with. I wouldn't hang out with those Wookiees. Another question I get asked is, it's uncomfortable. Yeah, it's not the most comfortable thing, I'm not gonna lie. It's like a big pillow on your head. I have a hard time hearing, but it's actually pretty comfortable. I don't sweat a whole lot with it. The quilting batting underneath of it just is a big cushion. I do have to lift the leg cue up a little bit, or like this piece, to hear people, but it's really not that uncomfortable, but it is cumbersome. You know, you have an added foot on your head and a big piece on the back that you have to watch out for, but it's not that uncomfortable. And it honestly, you can do it a full day, you know, even more. It's just up to you and what you think is comfortable. This is my level of comfort, although all of my costumes are really uncomfortable and hot. So I'm pretty much used to it by now. I have one question on how I'm trying to get it closer to fit her hairline. That's a hard question because this crown covers up a lot of this front piece because it does bulge off the head a whole lot. I will say a lot of people see her headpiece sits further back on the forehead, kind of here. I think in the actual Clone Wars series and Rebels, it does sit further back, so that illusion of, oh, I need my headpiece to sit really far back along my hairline is something that needs to be doing. I would suggest you move it forward. Move it to where it's almost parallel before the curve of your forehead starts. So maybe an inch before your hairline, and that's where you want to have the head, the edge to start. And then with your crown, it obviously will hide that, depending on which version of Ahsoka you're doing. Like I said, this is the Rebels. If you're making Clone Wars, or I think there's another version of her, like her book 1, and then the ones from season 7 are a little bit different, but this little bit does hide a whole lot, so I would suggest bringing it forward and using the crown to hide that hairline, instead of putting it so back on your head. One of the questions I have is that, are there any materials that you have access to now, or you either didn't have access before, or any further knowledge that I would like to do to make a new one? Yeah, like I said earlier, definitely the paint texture. I would definitely use latex again. I probably would put a couple more layers on to get that skin look a little bit. To get it a less, I would still use the same foam, honestly. Maybe a little bit thinner, maybe? Just to get that to move a little bit. I do see a lot of people with their Ahsoka headpiece making, stopping it kind of like the foam right here, and then having the bottom part of this part of the leiku movable, filled with either quilting batting. I've seen people fill it with sand. Sometimes it's filled with like socks, you know, whatever, just to get that to move a little bit. I would probably focus on doing something like that for my second round, just to give a little more flexibility in the headpiece, because it is very rigid. That is the problem with doing it this version, is that you do have a very sit headpiece. It's really rigid, but it does work and it's very budget friendly. Another question I have is, how's my peripheral vision while wearing it. It's okay, you know. I just can't turn my head a whole lot, so I'm pretty much just stuck looking forward. Here's a question that's interesting that I think I need to do a little more research on, but I have an idea on answering it. This person asks, do I have any issues with the latex getting stringy while applying? Tips to avoid that. I think that means your latex is getting too dry and it's not as liquidy to be able to apply it very straight without being stringy. I think that just means that your latex is drying out and you probably need to get some new latex, or don't think there's anything you can add to it to make it not less stringy, but I think that's what that is that the more stringy it gets, the drier. That is the indication that it's getting dry. So just might need to get some new latex for that. Another question is, how heavy is it? It's the weight of a pillow. So not at all. How long it took me to make this? Trial and error. I would say without getting through all of the trial and error first, probably took me at least a week or two. But making it, maybe 1 week, honestly. It wasn't hard after I figured it out. That was the hardest part, was trying to figure it out. But it didn't take me too long to make. You can make this probably within a week if you work on it every evening. This question is there a layer that sits against your head that is foam that's attached to, or does it just sit freely on your head? It sits freely on my head. It's within the video at the very beginning, I have kind of how I'm starting it. And it's hard to see right now, but I will link below my Facebook album. And within my Facebook album, there are a lot of work in progress pictures of how I made this before I got to this stage, so it's a lot easier to look. But I basically just took a ring of foam and just kind of stuck it on the top of the head here, and then I wrapped quilting batting around it, and then mostly just cut out where my face was and left it all the way around the crown of my head, all the way into the back, and then built it up with some more foam pieces. And that's where I just started gluing these pieces on first and then sewing them. So it does sit on my head with some stuff in between, but surprisingly, once you have the foam shape sculpt before you start using the latex and sewing that up, it will sit completely fine. You really don't have to build it up underneath for it to sit on your head where you need to be. Last question I'll cover, which has nothing to do with this Ahsoka headpiece, is how long it took me to put the body makeup on. And after a while, it took me probably 20 minutes or maybe half an hour. I'm pretty efficient on putting that stuff on now, but if you would like to find out how to put on Ahsoka's body makeup, I will put a card here on a link to my painting using water-based paint on how to do Ahsoka's body paint video that I made a couple years ago as well. Okay guys, that is it for my Ahsoka headpiece revisited video. If you have any other questions about this, please put them below or put them in my other videos. I have a lot about Ahsoka and I get questions about this constantly, so I will try to reply back to you as much as I possibly can on answering your questions about how you make your builds. I just want to go ahead and give a big shout out to everybody over the years who has attempted and made this headpiece. You guys have tagged me in multiple Instagrams and Facebook and tweets, and oh my gosh, it's literally amazing the fact that you guys were able to make this from that really shoddily GoPro shot video that I did in 2015. I'm so proud of you guys. It warms my heart to see Ahsoka cosplayers using my headpiece tutorial out there in the wild. If I go to a convention and I see an Ahsoka cosplayer, I pretty much will run up to you and ask for your picture and ask how you made your headpiece, because I love you guys, and the fact that I can tell sometimes from a hot minute, I'm like, oh, I think they used my tutorial, I'm gonna go see. And then I run up and they always look amazing. If you would like to see more Ahsoka content or Star Wars cosplay content or any other cosplay content, let me know in the comments below what you guys would like to see. Also, don't forget to share this video with your Ahsoka friends and like and subscribe to my channel. I release new cosplay content stuff or costume related stuff each week. And I'll see you guys next week. Bye!